Hello everyone, my name is Dave Richards. I'm the Business Development Manager for the Western region for SquareD. Appreciate you coming and attending our class today. Today what we're going to cover is we're going to look at our meter mains and solar ready product. So let's get started. So before we really get into the meat of the class today, let's talk a little bit about some of the terms that we use. Oftentimes you'll hear customers or people come in and say, hey, look, I want a all-in-one or a CSED product. Well, what does that mean? When somebody asks for a CSED, that means they're looking for a combination service entrance device. What that means is that the meter socket is part of an overall assembly, which also includes some spots for basically an interior, which allows you to plug in some breakers. We actually have a CSED product in two very specific categories. There's a meter main where it would just have the meter socket itself with a main breaker, or there's an all-in-one device, which you see pictured here, which has the main socket up here, the meter socket at the top, and has, once again, an interior here, so breakers can be added. Where's a practical use for this product? Well, oftentimes here in the West, this is utilized quite often rather than having just a load center centrally located in the house. This panel makes it easy because now we can do everything at one time. We can not only give a location for the utility to come mount their meter, but we can also drive all of the circuits and breakers right at the same panel. So it really cuts down on the cost of installation. So a lot of questions, you know, is this bonded? Is the neutral bonded? The answer is yes, but you need to make sure that it is bonded through the utility. So what does a meter main actually consist of? So here's a great picture of the interior of a surface mount meter main. You can see very clearly there is the socket at the very top of the panel. You'll also see this gutter space on the far left-hand side. That gutter space is there because these panels can be mounted or the incoming service can come in either from the top or the bottom. So in this case here, if I was coming in from an underground feed, I'm going to go up through this gutter space, which then gives me my plenty of room for my bend space from the wires coming in to make my connection to the socket very easily. We have various styles of these panels. So there, as we're showing here, a surface mount, we have semi-flush, we have combination of semi-flush, surface mount. We have amperage from all the way from 200 amp meter sockets to 400 amp meter sockets. And the 400 amp meter sockets do fall under the class 320, and they do have a lever bypass device in there so that the panel can be serviced and still have power to whatever the building is. There's a couple of different disconnects that we have. There's a couple of space differences. You can have a 2 to 8 space load center. There's provisions for even some disconnects. As I mentioned, you can have lever bypass type disconnections, or you can just have what we're showing here, a standard meter socket. So lots of different choices with inside. We're not going to cover all of them, but just want to make you aware that there are a lot of different designs that are at your fingertips through SquareD. So let's look a little bit closer at a CSED or all-in-one panel. You'll notice that these are type 3R units. So they're designed to go right outside in full weather condition. You'll see that the top end wall is very well protected. You'll see that we bend around the top, so no water filtration comes in through the top. There are truly three pieces to this load center we want to talk about. And we've already kind of alluded to it a little bit, but there is really the meter socket, which is either at the top or can be to the side of the panel. Or if it's just a meter only, meter main, You're going to have a main breaker with the meter socket here at the top, very square looking type panel. There are products that have service disconnects, so they'll have that lever bypass in there. But most importantly is it's going to have a main breaker as part of the installation somewhere. So whether it's part of the meter socket area or it's down below like you see here in this picture, this one actually is an all-in-one because it's got the load center, so it's got an interior, spots for breakers. Here's your main disconnect. It's integral to the load center, and then you've got the main meter at the very top. As I mentioned and alluded to a little bit earlier, these panels can be, you can order them as a overhead type installation only, or underground, or a combination which we call overhead underground service, right? And you can order these once again in both surface mount, semi-flush, or a combination where you can make the change in the field. Let's look at the interior of an all-in-one a little bit closer. Just a year ago, we had this protection plate right here, and this is just a little fiber board, but what it didn't do is cover the main lugs. We did this so that you can actually bring the service in, you can actually do your service work on the lugs. However, at the beginning of 2017, UL launched the UL 67 code, which now requires us to cover up those lugs. So what we did is we actually increased the dimensions on this fiber board to not only come all the way across the lugs, but you'll also notice in this picture down at the bottom right is that the fiber board actually comes all the way down to the back of the panel. In our previous version, it was just a 90-degree bend, and it came down and just kind of sat on top of the feeder bus bars. In this case here now, you don't have any opportunity for wire to actually snake up in there and actually touch something that could be live. Keep in mind in these panels, once again, that the main breaker is a means of disconnect. So that means the interior, once this breaker is in a off position, there is basically no power coming down through the interior. However, above there on the servicing bus bars, those are still active and live. So this is the real purpose behind putting this fiber board in here. It's once again, just to make things safer when you're doing upgrades to a panel, making additions, changing breakers around. You could have a loose wire, a neutral or a hot, or even a ground wire loose. This just helps keep you or basically the electrician safe. So let's look at, once again, just real quick from a model number standpoint, we have a couple of different styles to be aware of. We have SC product, which is, solar CSED type thing. We have RC, QC. So just keep in mind that when you're looking for it, that represents the type of panel. It represents whether it's a surface mount or semi-flush, or if it's a combination type, or if it's just a meter only. So as you're looking through the digest, keep in mind that there could be multiple part numbers that you could look at with similar features. They all have a 22 kA short circuit rating. They'll all accept a solar ready kit, which we're going to talk about a little bit more in the next slide. And best of all, they're all UL listed and suitable for NEMA 3R type equipment. So let's dig down a little bit deeper into our solar ready CSED product. There's a couple of things that are very unique with our solar ready product that our competitors don't have. Let's look at it first from a solar perspective. So the new solar requirements for any panel, any upgrade, any service upgrade requires that the bus be larger and capable of more amperage than the main breaker. So what does that mean? Well, let's look in the middle of the slide here. You're going to see the mathematical figures on how we derive to how large of a main breaker we can use coming from that solar inverter. So let's take this first one. So if you were to look at our panels, which by the way, our interiors are now 225 amp rated. So we have a total of 225 amps available through the bus. We actually times that by 1.2, which gives us an overall capability of 270 amps. We have to remove the main breaker from the equation. So we basically take the main breaker amperage away, which leaves us 70 amps of headroom for that incoming solar feed. Now 70 amps, guys, is really a pretty good size system. That's 30 to 40 panels out there, which is a great good size, once again, a good size solar feed. But let's look at what happens if you're with one of our competitors and they only offer a 200 amp main bus. So same thing, we times it by 1.2, we take away the 200 amp breaker, and that only leaves us 40 amps of headroom. So you can see we have quite an advantage over our competitors just right here. Now let's take one more scenario just for the fun of it here. And let's say we've got our product with a 225 amp main bus, and we do our multiplication, so we know that we've got enough room, we've got headroom for 270 amps in the panel, but we only couple that with a 150 amp main breaker, which we offer in this product. That means we got 120 amps of headroom. So you can see how important that 225 amp main bus really is with this product, and that's one of the key features that we have. Now you couple that with the plug-on neutral ability that we have in the panel, because all of these now have the interior, the plug-on neutral interior. So that means you can use your arc fault and dual function breaker plug-on neutral breakers, which means that they're much better. We don't have that pigtail to fight, so the installation is much quicker, and it's just a lot easier to work with. So the second thing, remember I mentioned there are two very distinctive features to this panel that set us apart from our competitors. First one is the 225 amp rated bus. The second is the ability to do what we call a line side tap. So in the picture at the bottom here, you'll actually see those bus bars that are coming from the socket, the meter socket. What we did, and you can't really see very well in the picture, but we elongated the studs here on this connection point on the bus bars. And what that allows us to do is put a simple chair lug on here, and now those wires that you see in the picture are actually coming directly from that inverter. So now we don't have to worry about how large our interior bus is, because as long as we're going on to a 200 amp meter, right, our headroom is a full 200 amps. So a line side tap is actually it's a great feature. Now let me point out very quickly here is that not all municipalities allow for line side taps, because they are concerned that there'll be too much draw or too much amperage coming through the panel. So please be sure to check with your local AHJ before you use this feature. It's a great feature, but make sure that it's accepted in that municipality you're doing your work in. Real quick here, this number right here, this SR69064A, that is the lug kit that we sell that can be mounted right onto the studs there, and is UL approved for the panel. So let's look at the part numbers a little bit closer. Now this is very specific to our Solar Ready product. I'm not going to give you all the part numbers to all of our meter mains, but I want to focus really on the Solar Ready, because that's the product that I think you'll really focus a little bit more of your time and effort, because solar here in the West is really a big deal these days. So this is our surface mount product. You'll see here on the left, these are the previous numbers, so some of you may be familiar with those, and that's why we put them on here on this slide, so that you can see what our old number was, and here's what the new number is. The easy way to tell that you've got an old panel versus a new panel is this letter P right here. The P actually represents plug-on neutral. So now you know that you've got the new interior, and it's a surface mount product. Now in this case here, Remember, they are all 225 amp rated buses. In the SC816, which is one of our more popular pieces, for one good reason. Number one, it's got a small area for a few breakers, so a lot of guys like to use this exterior, so they'll plug in their AC units or even an RV socket outside on this 816. But it does have feed-through lugs that will carry that full 150, or in this case here, the 816 F200, carry the full 200 amps through to a load center somewhere inside the facility. So this is it's a great panel, and once again, it offers the two features, solar ready, and it also has the plug-on neutral. You'll see the other two parts here, the other two models. I do want to point out that on this one here, it's a 42 circuit, right? It's an M200 42 circuit, so it's a 200 amp main breaker with 42 circuits in there. The 3042 here, you'll say, well, geez, what does that mean? That means that it's got 30 circuits, 30 full-size breaker circuits, with the ability to go to 42 half-size breakers if you choose. So that's your twins and possibly some quads in there. This SC42 is not capable of receiving any twins or quads. So that's the biggest difference there. So you see 42, 42. In the case of a 2040, because of the plug-on neutral interior, we can actually put twins and quads throughout the entire panel. And then once again, just a reminder, here is that lug kit that goes on there if you're doing a line side tap. So last slide here, guys, let's walk through the semi-flush product real quick. Same kind of thing. I want to point out the old part numbers did not have a letter P in there. The letter P obviously represents the plug-on neutral interior. And the 816 is a great piece because it has those feed-through lugs. Once again, you'll see here that the entire bus bar is rated for 225. Now, the one panel that is kind of nice to have that we do not offer in the surface mount product is this 125. So this one, once again, utilizing the advantage of the mathematical figure, the 1.25, this gives us almost 120 amps of open space for the inverter or basically the solar. So this is kind of a nice little panel here. Keep that one in mind, and then you've got the 2040 as well. This one at the very bottom here, the 3042 M225 PF, want to caution you there just a little bit, because if you are working with a potential solar application, this is probably not the right panel to use, because this is using a 225 amp main breaker and your bus is only 225. So that means you don't have any headroom for solar. If you need to have solar, move back down to the 3042 200 amp. This does have application for the larger homes, but once again, it's not really, it still has the features, so it still has the 225 amp main bus, and it still has the feed-through lug, or not the feed-through lug, but the line-side tap capability. So those features are still there. However, once again, just keep in mind that the main breaker is 225 amp. So hopefully that makes sense to you. And once again, I do appreciate your time spent with us here today. Hopefully we got you some new information and maybe a refresher on some old information. But if you have any further questions, please reach out to your local sales engineer, and they can get you the literature that you need and the information that you require. Once again, thanks for your time and have a great day.